Are you ready to embark on an adventure through the world of words? Join us on the Reading Revolution and let's explore the exciting world of literacy together. Hello and welcome to the Reading Revolution, a podcast dedicated to early childhood reading and literacy for all. We've got a great guest coming up for you today. Dr. Maria Murray, the founder and CEO of the Reading League, will be our guest. We're going to be talking about all things classrooms, curriculum, and getting young learners to be young, bright readers. I'm your host, Josh Gregory. And again, if you want to play along at home, check out their website while we're having our awesome discussion, thereadingleague.org. Dr. Murray, thank you so much for being here with us today. We appreciate you taking some time out. It is our pleasure to have you here on the Reading Revolution.
It's a pleasure to be here, and congratulations on your new podcast. Thank you for having me.
And it only exists with folks like you who are goodly enough to say, yes, I can take some time and share my thoughts on literacy. So
Podcasts are a big deal.
they are. They honestly, when we decided to talk about this in the way that we do with customers and the way we do in other outreach efforts, like this is a no-brainer. Let's invest a little bit of time here, get some great guests on and see where it takes us. That's the beauty of having these conversations is they're organic, let them happen and, maybe, inspire some folks to get involved in what we're talking about. And literacy is just so important on so many levels.
Yeah, it sure is.
So if you could you introduce yourself to our audience, talk a little bit about your background, and then we'll delve into the Reading League and what's going on and what it's all about.
I'd be happy to. So my name is Maria Murray, and I am talking to you from Syracuse, New York. I'm at the Reading League's headquarters here, and I am from Syracuse, been born right up the street in the hospital here, and have worked in the central New York area my whole life. In one capacity or another, many hats related to education and literacy, especially reading, instruction, and reading science. So my passion comes from my why, and my why is the fact that reading, like you had just said, literacy is critically important. We can get into that if you'd like, all that it manifests, and my why is teachers who are responsible for children, who it's a human right to know how to read, and we know how to do it right. And I want all educators to be empowered with that knowledge and know that it exists and know how to implement it successfully, because these are beautiful souls, these little babies, and to deprive them of a chance to know how to read and all that comes from knowing how to read is just something I can't imagine tolerating. So that's why we do what we do here. It's a mission that's easy to love.
So coming from the world of academia, I know that
Mhm.
you were a professor at SUNY Oswego. What
Yes.
was the transition from teaching to, hey, I want to start an organization, a nonprofit
Yeah.
that's focused on this? How did that happen?
That's a fantastic question, and one that I chuckle about all the time. Like, how did this happen? I am always fascinated by people's, like, how did you get to be there, Joshua? Like, was this in your great plan? Many of us start out in something hesitantly or deliberately, and the time goes on, and you turn here and you take a turn here and you get directed down there, and before you know it, you're somewhere that you had never dreamed of. And life is very good here. I'll be here till the end of my working career or till the day I die happily. But I went into academia. I started out in secondary social studies, and my high school students that I was starting to work out day, one of meeting students, they can't read very well. They aren't reading. They're refusing to read. They can't handle the workload. And so I looked up this thing called learning disabilities that I was hearing as a result of wondering what's going on. And right here at Syracuse University is Dr. Benita Blackman, and that changed my entire plan for the better. So she was a scientist. She's retired now, and her career was built on the shoulders of giants as well. And uh, prevention and remediation of reading difficulties was her research passion. So I caught that bug from her in my master's, and between my master's and doctorate, I started to work at coordinating her studies. So she's the brainchild behind the study. She writes the grant, she runs the studies, but someone has to coordinate all the bolts. Getting into the schools, communicating with the schools, communicating with the teachers, the parents, the spreadsheets, the data. We had labs and computers. And so I coordinated those studies and met scientists, and I was hooked. And I'm like, wow, Yale Dyslexia Center, Haskins Laboratories in Connecticut, Florida Center for Reading Research, going to DC and conferences and seeing these people stand up and say such amazing things. And I thought, this is amazing. But then I learned after those studies get published, who reads them? Other scientists, because they're not written for the practitioner. The knowledge is for the practitioner, right? The findings, the cool things, how the brain reads, how the brain has difficulties reading sometime, why that is, how we can remediate it and catch kids up, and how we can prevent reading difficulties by identifying some issues early on. I mean, these things we've known for a long time from many different disciplines, figuring out coming to the same, consensus. So if that's why they're doing the research, why aren't those things known in the schools? Wow. That's
So
a big problem.
you're going from that, "Hey, this is all great in a vacuum," but how do we actually
Right.
let this trickle down and get into the classroom? So I guess
Right.
from my assumption, that's what the Reading League is focused on, is
That's what
getting
we
that
do.
knowledge into the classroom.
Yeah, bingo. I mean, we're a knowledge broker. So if you go on Wikipedia, if you're listening to this and you got a computer, look up knowledge broker. That's exactly what we are, a person or an organization that takes the findings from the people who do the finding and brings it to the practitioner. Because I think all research, medical research, breast cancer research, get it to the doctors, right? A better and safer way to get dental x-rays, get it to the dentists. I'm doing a lot of medical models, but um, construction, architecture, weight loads. I mean, there's people learning engineering, um, how we can have better and more fulfilling and longer, healthier lives, and all of that. So, but the education, and there's some irony, right? Education, the whole word means, uh, educating people. Isn't reading a big part of that? And how
Mm.
can education have never had this knowledge get into it? After not, they always say, research takes about 7 years to get into practice. Well, how come decades have gone by? What's that about? So the hard truth, this is not an opinion, this is the truth because I experienced it in my time, 10 years at one university or the other. And I would say almost every person you speak to that has an experience in a school of education will say that um, the science of reading, the body of knowledge that comes from a scientific way of knowing about things, cause and effect and correlations and things like that come from experimental study, they have not typically been conducted in schools of education. They've been conducted in school psychology, cognitive psychology, neuroscience, communication sciences and disorders. And so there's never been a cross-disciplinary reaching out. Um, and therefore, people responsible for teaching educators don't even know about it. Um, Problem
How
is,
would and I'm thinking, because I've read some statistics, and you'd be
uh-huh,
a better person to actually
yeah,
bring some of those up with about
sure.
literacy and the failures that we're seeing.
Mhm.
Reading is such a fundamental aspect of life, of education, of any subject that a student is studying.
Anything,
How has it come to this where we're looking at it saying, these kids are growing up and they can't read? Shouldn't that be something that should be focused on? from the minute that they're born, and we
Yeah.
just seem to have been overlooking that for the longest time.
Well, I don't I don't think you could find anybody on a corner street and put a microphone to their face and say, "Do you think reading's not important?" I think it's a unanimous that reading is important and necessary. I I know that there's been this reading crisis for a long time where we only have about one third of our students reading proficiently, meaning on grade level. And they can independently read something on grade level and understand it. Um, that means two-thirds of students cannot, by the way, which is alarming. That's the problem. And the statistics are even worse if we're talking about Black and brown children, right? It's not it the numbers are even more dismal. So we can all agree that reading's important. Almost all of us can agree there's a problem. Some people will say, "No, there's no crisis. This is something that's being made up by those science of reading zealots. Our students are doing just fine in our district." Well, if that's the case, if someone says that, ask them how the bottom 20% of their students are doing. Do they close those gaps? Do they move out of that bottom 20%? Or do they just trudge along and then eventually barely graduate or don't graduate at all? So there's a lot of hidden truths and hidden or overt excuses being made, all in the name of I don't even know what. Yeah, you can always blame money, you can blame pride, you can blame people just not knowing. You don't know what you don't know, and so on. So I'm sorry if I didn't answer your question, but it's easy to get off topic when we discuss this for me. And your camera just went off. I don't know if
Yeah,
you're
actually, I was gonna say, so
making
that's
sure you're
perfect.
there.
Yeah, I'm gonna take a quick break here. So
Okay.
right before when I asked that last question, my
Yes.
camera is off.
Oh, that's fine. I can still talk to
Yeah,
you.
no, yeah, you can, but we need it
Oh,
for there we go. Okay, I'm back. Yay, I didn't disappear.
as long as I was still on and okay.
What's that?
So and I said as long as you can still
Yeah, no, I can yeah, I would let you know if I couldn't hear you, so
okay.
just making sure that we're A-okay before we move on. We're good, right? No, no, you're fine. That does answer the question. I'll
Oh,
follow
good.
up real quick with my an
2 cents.
interesting analogy that I
Oh, good.
yeah, okay, what do we got here? And that's the beauty of recording this without going live is we can do all these sorts of things and
Yeah. I remember the first time I did a television interview, like it's 7 minutes long. It feels like it's 2 seconds.
yep.
You sit down, they throw the lights on, and you're like, "So if I mess up, I can change my answer." Nope, live to
No.
tape. I'm like, "Oh gosh." That was not okay.
All right. I think we're good to go here.
Okay.
Okay, so I'm just gonna go right back into what we were talking about, when we were looking for things to sort of blame, but I
Yeah,
guess I would think about sometimes when I'm looking at these kinds of numbers and these sorts of I wanna say crises without getting too crazy when we're
yeah.
talking about education, but it
Mhm.
reminds me of the person who doesn't go to the dentist because they don't wanna hear what's wrong,
Yep.
instead of figuring out what we can do to make sure I don't have to keep coming back to the dentist.
Yes. Y Perfect analogy. We all have a relatives like, "I don't wanna hear it. If I don't go, I won't know."
Exactly, and that's
So,
kind of a scary place to be when we're talking about children who are going to grow up and need to be productive members of society in whatever they choose to be doing to be
yeah,
productive in that society.
right. And and, low literacy is one of the top, if not the top, public health crises in our nation. Public health doesn't just mean, what we imagine when we think of health, right? We think of our physical health, our emotional health. It's the health of our nation's, um, finance, right? If you aren't a reader, if you have low literacy, you are typically unemployed or underemployed. Therefore, you are not earning income that you can buy things with, so you're not paying a lot of sales tax into the system. You're also probably not earning a lot of income tax that you're paying into the system. And you're also probably in need of public assistance. So money is coming out of the system to you. Now, I hate to be crude and make this about dollars and cents, but when you think about, hey, why do all of our presidents and politicians prioritize reading? They seem to know a lot about it. No, they don't know anything about it other than the bottom line. And when you have a lot of children dropping out of school at 15, 16 years old, what do they do? Where do they go?
Mhm.
What do they become? Fill in the blanks. It's grim. So now you have that's the prison pipeline we're talking about, the when you can't read, there's a pipeline right to prison because you're in a fight for survival now, and how you're not going to have the ability to have that American dream of, a career that gives you your basic needs, maybe some extra things, maybe a family, maybe a roof to call your own, if that's your typical dream. You can't have that. So you're disenfranchised from society, community. We see low volunteerism, low voting, high imprisonment, high teenage pregnancy, high dependency on public assistance and services. So it's a public health tragedy, honestly. And I'm just going to jump to the truth that there's pretty much, with very little exception, small percentage of exception, one reason why someone doesn't know how to read. Simple. Put it on a put it on a coffee mug. It's because they aren't taught. They have not been taught. And here we go back to that whole thing. Well, why didn't that teacher do it? Didn't he or she want to do it? No, they had many teachers, preschool. A lot of kids are going through universal pre-K, kindergarten, first, second, third. We have 12 to 14, 15 years in a school system, and we can't manage to teach basic code and world, about our delicious world. It makes no sense. So it's not that they don't care. You don't go into teaching for the money. You go into it because you you want to teach. You love children. You want to impart knowledge to them. And so if you aren't doing it, A, it's because no one taught you how yourself. Back up to higher ed, upriver, right? B, you learned how, but the system you're hired into doesn't provide you the support or the materials to do it, because we know there's also a problem of publishers providing what people want. And if people don't know what they want and they think they want something that's pretty ineffective and has never worked, you're going to keep selling it to them because there's billions to be had. So in truth, Joshua, like, this is very complex. I don't know a better way to say it. I gotta say it simply. It's complex. It's not just higher ed getting them to convince to include some of this in their syllabi and programs. It's not just making sure the teachers get it. It's not just making sure the publishers clean up their act and only provide, you know, programs and approaches that have been shown to really assist the brain in developing that reading self. It's more. It's teacher certification. It's making sure that schools give ongoing professional development. Nobody runs a whole full career doing X, Y, or Z from what they learned in college. You get maybe a little bit of X and then YZ and so on in your career. You learn on the job. How about ensuring that our state legislators, include support? If we roll out initiatives, make sure that they are rolled out responsibly. So there are a number. I'm going to cheat here and go to this call to action for all stakeholders. This is from the Reading League's Defining Guide, which people can download for free or get one on our website if you like paper copies. But Educators have to embrace opportunities to learn about the science of reading and reflect upon their practice. District and school administrators, that is a big one because typically school administrators never learned this. Their programs do not include it. You can make some phone calls to area colleges and ask. They maybe used to be a high school physics teacher and now they're an elementary principal, right? School boards, those are the people who hire the administrators, and the administrators are those who hire the teachers, right? They have to prioritize that professional development for themselves and so that they can best support the educators and coaching and resources. State departments of education and schools of education, pediatricians, they do a lot of wonderful work helping to screen for early health-related things, but they have to learn how to prioritize screening of early speech and language developmental milestones for red flags. Curriculum publishers, federal agencies, and private foundations, let's please continue to fund research. And policymakers, professional literacy organizations like the Reading League and others have to continue providing resources. And reading scientists keep investigating and also translating. And finally, parents and last but never least, parents and caregivers take an active part and make sure that those schools and school systems are embracing evidence. So see how complex that is.
So how does the Reading League take all of those kind of challenges on or
Mhm.
opportunities? I guess
I
would
like
be a
that.
better word. How do you get that kind of messaging out to such a vast group of people? And I mean, think of just the districts in New York State alone. Now times that by 50. How does the Reading League get this messaging out to the people it means the most to, or should mean the most to?
Thank you. Great question. No, I don't think anyone's ever asked it in that way. We have a hashtag, it takes a league. So what is the whole framework of a league is anyone who has skin in the game. So any reading league, anything is never going to be designed, developed, or promoted or delivered by just one stakeholder group. It's not just ivory tower finger wagging. It's not pitchfork wielding this or that. We are many, our logo in and of itself demonstrates, coming together in a circle around reading instruction and issues related to reading instruction with all different kinds of levels of expertise and something to add to the cause. So how we do it is at first, our only intent and our primary audience is, like I said at the beginning, educators, the people responsible, whether you're a tutor in a private tutoring, in a place where new immigrants coming in will need to learn, adult volunteer programs. If someone needs to learn how to teach someone to read, that's our main audience. And how we have done that is live events, conference, the Reading League Journal. My gosh, we have an online academy for taking what we call knowledge blocks, not classes per se. These are not, they are virtual, cameras on, and they are synchronous, not asynchronous. I love asynchronous learning, but it's awful tempting to go put a load of laundry in or take a call, turn your camera off. This is pretty intensive with an expert. So we find ways to um, get to educators. Our best and our goal is our professional development partnerships with schools. A lot of people don't know we do this yet. We are building it carefully in a way that there's the highest possible expertise and delivery and consistency in the delivery. And so we have, approaching 100 school district partners across the country. but there's thousands and thousands, right? There's
Hmm.
there's plenty of
Right.
work to be done. How do they all get reached? Um, we also have a state chapter network, which is something we can't imagine ever not having. Like there is no reading league without our chapters. And so we currently have 29 state chapters, and every year we bring on 5 more. So next 2024, we'll have 34 state chapters who are their own nonprofit 501c3 organizations. They're required to do at least 3. They're free to do more, but they're volunteers. So they do such a beautiful job of delivering professional development for educators in their states and beyond. It's always online. So if you can sign on to one in Virginia, one that's happening in New Mexico, and so forth. So last year, over 250 uh, uh, Reading League state chapter leaders worked with their teams to develop over 200 sessions in 1 year alone. That's a lot. And so that's just going to keep growing. So that's kind of the main ways that we get knowledge to teachers, whether we're directly in their schools, them coming to us for online work, going to our conferences or state chapter events. What we're also mindful of is those stakeholders. So just last October, many people listening probably are aware that we launched this compass, is what we call it. And that's readingleague.org/compass. Great way to learn a lot quickly. So a compass is not a map. A map tells you exactly how to go somewhere, but a compass will point you in the right direction. So I have examples of administrators again. I just talked to an administrator in New York State who was a student of mine 10 years ago. He's now an elementary school principal, and he's a little frustrated because he's in a district that is not exactly embracing the science of reading. They're fine as they are. No, thank you. So he's like, what do I do? How do I, where can I start? And we went onto the compass together. He clicked on the administrator compass point, and it just takes you through everything. An explanation of how important admins are, their call to action, everything from videos from other administrators, papers they can read, podcasts they can listen to, audio docs, you name it, steps they can take. So I told him, spend some time in there and call me back in 2 weeks and we'll keep going. But the compass is a phenomenal tool that we're very proud of. I think when we announced it in October, just in the month of October alone, we had, God, I don't know how many thousands of individuals go on that place, and it's been very helpful. So state ed departments are using it. It's got the only interactive map of the United States. You can click on any state you want and the kind of legislation or initiative you're looking for. And it lights up, like if you click on early screening legislation, you click on that and you'll see all the states that have that.
Hmm.
And you can make your selections.
Do the
So,
do the
mhm,
state chapters have
yeah.
a playbook or guidelines that come from the reading league, or are they allowed to kind of
Oh,
do their own thing, or is
yeah,
you know where I'm going with that question? Is it
sure.
kind
Yeah,
of a
of
free for
course.
all,
No,
or is there structure?
free fall. That's no, I'm smiling big because I remember when we first got asked, we need a chapter here. We need a chapter in our state. I'm like, what? No, we can't do that. How does one do such a thing? Well, we examined many, many models. How does Alzheimer's Association do it? How does International Dyslexia Association, what are their models? What do they require? And then we thought, this is why I'm laughing and smiling, kind of like, how are we going to keep quality control? And I'm just so proud because Joshua, like, if you knew these chapter leaders and get them in a room, I just want to shrink back in the corner and listen to them. Like, they are experts. They are brilliant. They get it. They are living the mission. They are exemplifying the mission. And so quality control has never come up as an issue. They put on events that are amazing. We do support them with things like assets, design assets, logos, colors, basic website setup. We have monthly meetings, and our amazing state chapter director, Andrea Setmeyer in Indianapolis, she provides monthly meetings with whatever they need. Maybe they need help with fundraising. Maybe they choose to have events with 2 or 3 other state chapters. But really, we're there to support them. And it's a heavy lift because we know that they are all volunteers. We were there ourselves when we first started out. We didn't all leave our jobs that minute. We kind of did this on the side. So I love when they go arm in arm with maybe their IDA branch person or their decoding dyslexia group people, and they work together to put on an event in their state. But no, it's not. It's a very good model that we're happy with, and they seem to feel very well supported. And the second we hear someone doesn't feel supported, it becomes a concern here, and we fix it.
Are there any facets of curriculum that are kind of tried and true when it comes to, you know, getting someone, on the road and pathway to reading? It seems like you have folks who are, well, this is what we've always done. This is what really works. And then there always seems to be in education a new way to do things.
Ah,
And maybe it works and maybe it doesn't. But
yeah,
do you have any of those tried and trues that you'd like to share with your district, saying, hey, this is really what's effective in your classroom?
right. Okay, that's easy. And first of all, can I, for people who may not know, what is the science of reading? So that's why we made this defining guide. I haven't even mentioned what it is, have I?
Well,
And
there's no better time than the present.
no, there's no better time. And you're all gonna have to be blown away with this definition. It's so I'm just being sarcastic. The science of reading is a vast, interdisciplinary body of scientifically based research about reading and issues related to reading and writing. So if you think about it, that definition and the word science of reading, the word to pay attention to is science. We're talking about findings from a certain kind of research. So then this defining guide talks about the type of question being asked determines the method of research. If there are questions about the causal relationships between what kind of instruction works and student outcomes, hopefully better ones, well, those kinds of questions are best answered with a scientific or experimental research design. In our world, there are many valuable ways of knowing about something. You can learn about psychology. You can delve into the brain itself, the structure. You can go into become more spiritual pursuits, like just what happens in our brains. Or anyway, qualitative studies, observational studies, case studies. Those are all also equally valuable, and they are very good ways of knowing about why a particular student does this, an individual student, or why Mrs. Jones's class seems to blah, 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 but if you want to know about tens of thousands of students, that's different. But taken all together, we need all kinds of research. The problem is that this kind has been sidelined, so we have to really get it out there. And what the science of reading is not, it's not a philosophy. It's not a pendulum swing. So a lot of people say, well, it's always, it'll be something else in 10 years. No, science is the way science works is that it kind of is a rock and it thuds. It gets heavier and heavier and more refined, more defined. You polish the rock, you chisel it, it gets, maybe the rock gets bigger because of some heated up thing or whatever. But what really swings is our approaches to teaching. And when it swings a lot when there are philosophies or theories being bandied about. So for instance, the word revolution behind you or the word road on your mic arm there. When I look at those words, they just pop into my head. I don't have to sound them out, right? It seems very much that when I look at those words, they just are read but as whole chunks, right? And I ask anyone else listening right now to look down at print and try not to read it. You can't not read print once you're a skilled reader. So unfortunately, because it seems like every time we read, we read the word as a whole chunk. We have been for a long time teaching reading as whole words. So sending kids home with index cards, here's 100 words you need to know before kindergarten's out. Or um, having word walls, under the letter C that has a cat on it for k. You have the word city. That's weird. C doesn't say k in city. Or the word child. C doesn't say k. So a lot of our instruction is a little head scratchy, right? It's like, why are we teaching it this way? It doesn't seem to really be yielding great outcomes either. So the science, I have a small sampling to answer your question.
Sure.
The instructional practices that are aligned with the findings from that kind of research
Mhm.
are that instruction in letter knowledge, obviously the sounds and names of our letters, and phonemic awareness, that's the sounds that those letters and represent, are absolutely critical, and that's a no-brainer. However, I I have a lot of time under my belt, having been in schools where they never taught phonemic awareness, although this was something that was learned about in like the 70s. So I
Mhm.
was in schools in the 80s and 90s and 2000s where they hadn't even touched it yet. It took a while. They're getting there. Um, Instruction has to be explicit and systematic. So we don't leave it to chance. A lot of our instruction in schools is very child-centered, a lot of choice, a lot of incidental learning, instead of explicitly pointing out how the language is represented by print. And then we want to have kids practicing all these things in connected text that gives them opportunities to practice exactly what we just taught, starting with basic words, building up to more complex patterns, and making sure that kids can read accurately and automatically. And a lot of the text in the past has been anything but that, a lot of guess reading. So it would be a lot of predictable text with a sentence stem. I see a blank in the sky. All the kids have to do is practice, know that sentence. And then the blank has a picture on the page. I see a bird in the sky. I see a cloud in the sky. I see a plane in the sky. I see a hippopotamus in the sky. They don't even have to read hippopotamus because there's a picture of one. So that's what we've qualified as reading, just looking at the whole word. You see in classrooms a lot where the word is outlined with a shape as though that's going to cue you in by shape, but the word happy and hoppy and hippie, they all have the same shape. So
Mhm.
anyway, instructional practices then have really included visual memorization of whole words, guessing from context and picture cues. So that's getting the word off the page. Some of those are some samples. There's also instructional practices aligned with language comprehension. So it's very aligned with the evidence base to do read alouds from a variety of more complex texts. So before kids can read, we should be reading to them, and that builds their knowledge about words and their world and vocabulary. So how else are you going to learn words like coax and exhausted and suspicious and sinister and, you know, stagnant? Like, you don't hear those words in everyday language, but you get those from, believe it or not, children's texts. Robust conversations to develop academic language, and all kinds of other vocabulary and grammatical pieces that help words on a page make sense. And then um yeah, there's a whole bunch of other instruction that has gone against those basic tenets. So nothing, I hear myself, and I know I'm not saying anything that would surprise an outsider.
Mhm.
It makes perfect sense what I'm saying, doesn't it?
Absolutely, and it's funny, and I'll take a minute to joke. All of
Yeah.
those words you just said, except stagnant, describe behaviors in the way that I deal with my five-year-old daughter.
How so?
Suspicious, pokes, all those,
Oh,
yes,
yeah,
those all
okay.
fit right into my life right now. Anyway, get back to the podcast.
Well, that makes sense then that they're in children's books, because those are fun for kids to hear, that mom had to coax her back into bed, or that
Exactly,
the
and
kids were making a commotion out in the hall,
it's
those were
quiet,
the
but
ones.
that's
Yeah.
kind of suspicious, yes.
Yes.
I
Yes.
did wanna ask a quick question here,
Yeah.
as we start to wind the podcast down. We're talking about these the methodology behind reading. How
Mhm.
important has it, or maybe it isn't at all,
Mhm.
when it comes to subject matter and the different audiences that are learning to read? Does that play a large role?
So you mean like different contents?
Exactly.
Oh, for sure. Without even saying, absolutely. So when and what should be happening too is, you don't want to be learning to read in a vacuum of just learning to read. You should be learning to read about skeletal systems, electricity, weather patterns, different cultures, and you name it. You should be learning social studies, history, science of all kinds, math, with while you're also reading. And then I think the second part of your question was different audiences.
Mhm.
So are you talking about adults and teenagers, and
Sure,
or
100%, because we know
uh-huh.
that the reading issues and the literacy issues we're seeing in this country probably start obviously at the early years, but
Mhm.
what happens when you are now 14 or you are 28 and you're still struggling to read? Obviously, very, very different audiences.
Yeah. And I'm not happy to respond that it's bleak. It's very bleak, because I don't want anyone listening to this to think bleak means impossible. I mean, um, it's bleak because the by the time you're in intermediate, elementary, and especially middle school, and especially high school and beyond, the people responsible for teaching you have a curriculum, and it does not include basic literacy, and I'm sorry, reading instruction. So there is not likely, unless there's a special ed program that really does build up your reading, no matter where you're coming from. Maybe you're still even at a kindergarten or first grade level. You're going to have to be in a school where they prioritize that, and have educators willing to do it. I know if I drive in probably any direction, I know I'm thinking of one high school in particular, about 50 minutes or so from here. I don't know. Uh, I know that they have 200 students reading at a second grade level, and this is a high school. So what
Wow.
what do you do? Do you stop the presses? Do you say, we're going to just not give you your content, but teach you, but not teach you how to read it yourself? And to me, the converse is even an uglier, well, I guess that's the ugliest situation. I might did it backwards. I don't know. Because how's that person reading at a second, third, fourth grade level going to do? Are they going to be okay? And will having learned the content about photosynthesis and music and art and all that help be the thing that helps them survive that? I don't know. This keeps me up. It hurts my jaw. It hurts my heart. I'm not alone in that.
But this
And
isn't this isn't something that's impossible to take
no,
on, that
no,
there have been results, and this is something that we can look forward to as being, there is a solution. There is something that we can do to correct
yeah,
this.
yeah. So we have literally got the answer to low literacy. And now we just have to make sure it gets out to everyone and gets done with an intentional urgency. These children are so smart. I say this all the time. These kids know every Pokemon. I don't even know if Pokemon are popular anymore. I think they're still on the shelves, but they know what they morph into and their power levels. They know World Wrestling Federation wrestlers and their stats. There's baseball, their basketball, their heroes, their music. They know things. If their dad's a hunter, they know all about ducks or deer. But we can't manage to get them basic print concepts in preschool and kindergarten. That's unacceptable. And being able to hear sounds in speech and discern them and apply that in some simple books has to be part of a day with intentionality and urgency. If kids aren't getting it, we have to use the most valid and reliable assessments that really indicate who's in trouble with accuracy and diagnosis for us what to do. There has to be an answer. What do they need tomorrow, right now, that I can give them? And then we do that and we keep an eye on them. And that's the ticket. And then we don't let them go second, third, fourth grade not reading. We just don't let that happen. That has to be a
Mm,
no, not on my watch.
mm.
And that's the kind of talk I want to hear from all administrators. They need to stand up and say, I have unfinished learning as well. And I'm going to be there with you. Let's learn together. Not on my watch. No way. So
So how can anyone get involved with the reading league? What's the easiest way for them to reach out to you, whether they are an administrator, whether it's a family, a parent, a guardian that's also
yeah,
interested in what they can do? How do they get in?
yes. Keep the compass is fantastic. Go to the compass, read your part. If your part isn't there yet, stay tuned. We will be adding more compass points this year, especially for parents and caregivers. Parents right now, if you have littles that are learning to read, we do have a free television show called the Reading League's Reading Buddies. It has its own website that is on a soft launch right now, but I'll tell it to you anyway. It's trlreadingbuddies.org is the website. You can also watch it for free on YouTube. We've got, I think, close to 300 or 30,000 followers on that YouTube channel already. So that is a phenomenal way to learn um, print, how to form letters, what the letters, the sounds, how to put them together, how to blend them, how to segment them, and so forth. So that's fantastic. Um, the website will have a lot of downloads that parents can use coming soon to print. The kids can earn little badges for every sound they learn. It's really cute. Follow the alphabet tiers, real cute, beautiful children from here from Syracuse. You can call your PBS station and have them pick it up for free. They will know how to get it and yeah, I guess that's for parents. and family members, other stakeholders, go to the readingleague.org and get a copy of the Science of Reading Defining Guide, send it to your school board, send it to your administrators. Ask everyone you know to read, or I'm sorry, listen to the audio podcast by Emily Hanford called Sold a Story. It's a multi-part audio podcast that was in like the top whatevers of podcasts or whatever in 2023. Social media groups, the Reading League has some. If you're an educator, get the Reading League Journal, come to our conference. I mean, we just
There's a
tell
lot
us.
going on.
Yeah, we have an info website on their website. By all means, contact us if there's something I didn't answer. We are happy to hear from you. And we consider the league, don't talk about it as you or yours. Don't say, what are you doing at the Reading Leagues? What are we doing?
Sure.
It's ours, it's us. So we like that kind of social movement language.
Well, that wraps right back to something that you said in the beginning of the podcast about skin in the game. And we all have skin in the game. And the
Yep.
work that you're doing is phenomenal. And we would ask everybody who's listening to
Thank
go
you.
check out the Reading League. And Dr. Murphy, thank you so much for being part of the Reading Revolution. It's been a pleasure speaking with you.
I love
I
it.
hope you've enjoyed your time too.
I really have. I love your name, Reading Revolution.
Great. Thanks again.
Success. Thank you.
All right, great. All right, everybody, that's going to wrap it up for this episode of the Reading Revolution. Keep staying tuned on your favorite platforms for podcasting. We've got a lot of great guests coming up in the coming weeks. We will see you then the next time we're here on the Reading Revolution. My name is Josh Gregory. I am your humble host. We'll see you next time. Thanks for joining us.